Fantastic. So my name is Elise Rudolph. I'm the Director of Online Admissions and Recruitment. And Stephanie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this workshop tonight. My name is Stephanie Nguyen, pronouns she, hers. I'm the Online Education Recruitment Manager, so most likely you'll come in contact with me or hopefully in the future so I can support you and assist you with learning more about the program and the application process. So thank you again for joining us.
Great. And we are your admissions team. So we're really excited to talk to you about the application process. We know that just applying to grad school in and of itself is a big task, and it takes a lot of time and effort, and we want to do our part to make it as clear and accessible as possible. So the purpose of this webinar is really to help you understand all the details of the application process, understand what we're asking of you, and support you to essentially put your best foot forward. We want you to have an authentic and competitive application that you feel really represents yourself and is meeting, the requirements that the admissions committee is looking for. So to kick things off, there's a couple minimum requirements that are actually required by either the program or UC Berkeley. So the first is statistics or college level math with a B+ or higher. So I wanted to speak to this in a bit more detail, but essentially what this represents is quantitative preparation. The program is the way it's designed. Your first year courses have they have a fairly intense quantitative focus. And we want to ensure that anyone entering the program has a strong base in quantitative preparation so that you'll be successful in those first year courses. So the best way that our admissions committee feels to get prepared and prep for those first year quant courses is to have taken a stats or college level math class and have earned a B+ or higher. Now, there are some other ways that you can demonstrate quantitative preparation, which we're happy to get into. And if you have kind of more specific questions about your situation, we're happy to address those. But the basic thing that we tend to look for is, again, stats or college level math with a B+ or higher. The second minimum qualification is a 3.0 GPA, and this is actually set by campus, by UC Berkeley campus, not necessarily by us as a program. And there are ways, we certainly are still open to accepting applicants who do not have a 3.0 GPA. So applicants who do not meet that 3.0 GPA certainly should still feel free to apply, and then connect with Stephanie and I on how to make your application competitive, and again, show that you are academically prepared for a rigorous graduate level program, even if you haven't met that 3.0 GPA. We completely understand that things happen, and in some cases, your undergraduate was a long time ago and you don't feel it represents your academic abilities now. So we're happy to kind of work with you and address your specific circumstances. But those are the prerequisite requirements to apply. All right, so apart from the prerequisites, there is the materials that you actually need to submit as part of your application. And we'll go into these in more detail later on in this presentation, but the checklist that we're looking for is first, 2 different essays, your statement of purpose, which should be 1,000 words, and then your personal history statement. And that should also be 1,000 words, but important to remember that it's 2 distinct essays. The next thing that we're going to look for is what's called your advanced GPA. And your advanced GPA is actually your GPA from your last 2 years, or I should say everything after your first 2 years of undergraduate coursework, or everything after your first 60 units of undergraduate coursework. The reason being, we actually feel that your advanced GPA, which again looks at everything after your first 2 years, tends to be favorable for applicants because we understand that those first few years of undergrad are an adjustment period. You're learning how to study, all of those things. So we prefer to look at your advanced GPA, and we do have a calculator that's linked here in this presentation that you can use to determine what your advanced GPA is. The next thing we're looking for is 3 letters of recommendation. These do need to be from academic or professional sources. We need to see transcripts from every institution you've attended. So if you did classes at a community college, if you transferred schools, if you studied abroad, whatever the scenario is, we do need to see transcripts from every institution that you took classes at. We need to see your resume or CV. There is a non-refundable application fee, $135 for US and permanent residents, or $155 for international applicants. And then if you completed your undergraduate degree in a country where English was not the primary language, you may be asked to submit a TOEFL or an IELTS score as well. And then great news, the GRE is not required. So not something you have to worry about if you haven't taken it, but if you have taken the GRE, you are welcome to send us those scores, and we've included the school code. So what is our admissions timeline? Well, if you are on this call, I will begin by saying that you are doing fantastic. You're planning ahead. You're getting on top of things. So that's great. Our fall application is currently open. This would be for students who want to start the program in August of 2025. You can apply now, as early as now. It opened last month. Our priority deadline, though, is January 5th. And then our final deadline for fall is actually March 2nd. So again, those of you who are looking into this now are on a great track, a great timeline to submit by that priority deadline if you would like. And if you feel like you really want to take your time with your application, you're also welcome to submit by March 2nd for fall. Our spring application is actually also open. If you are just getting some information early on, but really not ready to start the program in the next year, you are welcome to apply for spring of 2026 as well. All right, and I'll pass it over to Stephanie to talk a little bit more about the different pieces of actually completing your online application.
Thank you, Elise. So as Elise mentioned, we're going to walk through the application in phases and show you what it looks like, why some of the questions appear on your application, and how to address it. You'll want to create an account through UC Berkeley's graduate application, and I'll lead you to our program page where you can select your preferred term and also the program. So as you can see here, I'm choosing fall of 2025, and my intended program will be Public Health Online MPH. So double check your application. That way you can find some of the specific questions that are required for our program. And moving forward, the biological information. So in this space, we're going to ask you to include your preferred name, your address, citizenship, and if you are submitting any test scores and you've used any different email addresses, make sure to include that email address so we can locate it in our system and match it to your application. We want to make sure that your application has as much materials as possible that best represents them. We don't want to miss any of those key pieces that can really support your application. Moving forward to the personal background, this page here is going to ask you a little bit more about your residency, your visa status, and you want to complete this as best as you can. I know that sometimes this can be tricky, but you can always reach out to us if you have any questions about that. But there will be questions around which country or region were you born in, what city were you born in, things like that. So again, this is to the best of your ability. And there will be some questions that also ask about your residence here. Moving forward to the educational background, indicate any information around your attendance, if there was any disciplinary violations, community college within California. Again, very straightforward. And if it doesn't apply, that's okay. You can move forward in the process. So keep in mind that a lot of these questions may not necessarily apply to you, and it is possible to move forward in the application process. And moving into the economic background, this is going to cover all the details around your experience if you use federal Pell Grant, living situation, and more importantly, for scholarships. If you are planning to apply to our scholarships that are available for your application term, you'll want to make sure to include here. That way it will be a completed process to apply to the program. So it's not only the forms. We'll get into that in just a second, but overall, this is an important piece to completing that scholarship application. And that's specifically the Dean's Health Equity and Leadership Award, and also the Rural Health Innovation Scholarship Program. Otherwise, this section will be optional. The academic history, this is actually a very interesting page because the place where you would submit your transcript is kind of small. So a lot of times students miss this piece here. But on this page, it is required for you to list and attach an individual transcript from each institution that you've attended, starting in this page here. So you want to start from undergraduate school up until your highest level of education. And again, all you have to do is just scroll down to the bottom of the page and you'll see where it says add institution, submit transcript, and that's where you'll include your transcript. Again, it has to be one per institution. So if you've attended community college at Berkeley City College and you've attended UC Berkeley, we will require 2 transcripts for that. We want to make sure that all of the information is correct, up to date, and that way if there's anything that did not transfer over for your finalized transcript, we can assess and reach out to you if there's something that we need and we don't see, etc. Moving forward with the GPA, it is required to include your cumulative and your advanced GPA as our primary requirements on this page. We also ask for your major field of study, but the primary 2 that we're really looking for is the undergraduate GPA and the advanced GPA. So just to kind of quickly go over this, I know that Elise had mentioned a little bit earlier the advanced GPA portion. So to reiterate with that, we are asking for your undergraduate coursework, so anything after your first 2 years of undergraduate studies up until your conferred date, or anything after your first 60 units up until your conferred date, which means when that last class to earn you your undergraduate degree. The cumulative undergraduate GPA includes credit units from all coursework taken to the date from every institution used towards your undergraduate degree. So that one should usually be found next to the degree award. If you ever run into any issues with this as you're working on this, reach out to us. We're always happy to help, as I know that this is not something you commonly might or may work on. The major field of study is specific to your field. So if you're already working on your advanced GPA worksheet, my best tip is to just remove any coursework that isn't a part of your major to get that number or that GPA. And if your intended field of study was not your major for your undergraduate degree, please calculate the GPA for all courses listed on your transcript. This is an optional piece here, so we would love to see you complete this as best as possible, but if it doesn't apply for any reason, again, you can skip over that. Usually the asterisk in your application will identify if it is required. The cumulative graduate GPA, again, not all students attend graduate school. This might be your first time applying to a graduate program. So if it doesn't apply, you can skip ahead. But if you do have it, be sure to include that there. If you have attended an institution where maybe it was like a medical program and it doesn't have the grade, it is okay to skip that, but make sure that you include your transcripts for us to assess if it was pass, fail, so we can get a closer look and assessment on that. The languages. So moving into this section, we're going to ask you to include any languages that you speak to indicate your competency in each of the languages. And it also helps us to understand, the uniqueness of our cohort. What other skills do you have coming into the program, and really understand the full picture of our cohort. And moving into recommendations, I'm going to pass this along to Elise to speak a little bit more in detail about this.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. So yeah, so one of the big components of this application is submitting your 3 letters of reference. So as we mentioned earlier, these do need to all come from either professional or academic sources. So you certainly want to avoid family members or friends. We want to keep them professional or academic. And we recommend that of the 3, it's ideal that you have at least one be professional and one be academic, and then the third can be, either professional or academic. So that's ideal. But we understand that some folks have been out of school for some time, or maybe you've been out of the workforce for some time. And so it is okay for all of your letters to be professional. Or academic. However, if you're doing, for instance, like just professional references, you are going to still want to coach at least one of your references to speak to your academic abilities, because again, at the core, this is a professional degree program. So it's graduate school. It's going to be an intense academic setting. And the people that you're working with are also going to be your colleagues as you launch into the public health field. And so, we want references that are going to speak to your professionalism, your skills and abilities, your ability to succeed in this setting. And it's really important, if you are just submitting professional references, that they're able to speak to your academic abilities as well. So your potential for success in a rigorous academic environment. It's something to keep in mind if you have the majority of your letters are leaning one direction. And also just a note on this, Stephanie and I did do a workshop specifically on letters of recommendations, which you can find on our YouTube page as well. So if you want more tips and tricks in detail about what we're looking for out of those letters, or how to prepare your references, things like that, definitely encourage you to check out that session. I'm sorry, I'm going to just talk a little bit more about this, but from a logistics perspective, when you're requesting your letters through our online application, what you'll do is input their contact information, their email addresses, and then they receive an email notification directly from our system asking them to submit the letter on your behalf. So you will have the opportunity to do what's called waiving your right to view the letter, which we highly recommend. And essentially, your reference will submit the letter directly to us rather than to you as the applicant. All right. And then, we have the tip here, but we can never over stress this. It's so good to give your references as much time as possible and as much information as possible. So, give them ample time to write these letters, provide them with as much information as you can about the program, about why you're applying, and about yourself. Okay, so employment history. This is also another important part of the program because, as you know, there is kind of a recommended requirement for a 2+ years of work experience prior to applying. I shouldn't say requirement, but it's recommended that you have 2+ years of work experience. And so we want to take a look at that and see what experience you're bringing to the cohort. And you will submit a resume or CV, but the application system also requires that you submit your employment history manually as well, which we know is a lot of work, but it really helps us identify key information. So we can look at specific details like your job responsibilities, the relevance of those job responsibilities to what you'd be doing in the program. And it helps provide any clarity or fill in any gaps that we might have from your resume. So, I would say use this as a tool to your advantage. It's another opportunity for you to go into more detail about your experiences and the skills that you would bring. So this is a place where you will list your prior work experiences, the title you held, where you completed that work, etc. All right. Now, your statement of purpose. So we're getting into your essays, which are another, really important component of this application. Your statement of purpose is your why. It's really your why. So tell us why you're choosing to pursue graduate studies through the UC Berkeley online MPH. Why this program? Why UC Berkeley? Why the online MPH program? Tell us why this concentration. You have the opportunity to apply to one of our 4 different concentration options. So tell us what stood out to you about that concentration. Tell us how this program and how that concentration aligns with your goals in public health or aligns with your specific experiences. Tell us what is your public health challenge or any gaps in knowledge that you think the MPH program would be filling. So, why is this kind of the necessary next step for you to get where it is you want to go in life? Maybe it's knowledge gaps, maybe it's a specific skill, things like that. So explain that in detail. You might want to talk about how will this program meet and or support your academic or professional needs or career aspirations. You can talk about specific classes that stood out to you or specific faculty members that stood out to you. So you really want to tell us about your interests, background experiences, and why you're passionate about public health here at UC Berkeley in our online MPH program. And it's really important, again, I mentioned this earlier, but these are 2 distinct essays. So you want to make sure that you're not repeating any information that's landing in one of the other essays. Now, your personal history statement is a little bit more about you, who you are, what brought you to where you are today. So this is what experiences have shaped you to who you are today. You might want to reflect on key moments from your journey, especially those that have led you to the field of public health. And it's really important that you can use this to provide context to any gaps or inconsistencies in your academic record or perhaps your resume. So you can this is a great place to tell us about, maybe if you had a rough semester in your undergraduate, this is a great place to kind of tell us what was going on, any barriers you might have been facing at that time. So give us some context for who you are and the other pieces of your application that we're seeing. You want to incorporate any experiences that have prepared you and motivated you to complete this degree. I would say especially those experiences that have prepared you, because again, this is still a part of your case for why we should admit you into the program. And so, talk about those key experiences that made you fall in love with this field, but also made you uniquely prepared to work in the field of public health. And then how would you be a contributing member to the UC Berkeley community through your values? So you can talk about that as well if it's, something that you connected with from our mission or our vision, things like that, you're welcome to talk about as well. One last thing I would say for your personal history statement is while this is an essay about you and who you are and your experiences, it is going to be incredibly important that everything you share with us in this essay is still, you want to ensure that it's all connected to your reasons for getting an MPH degree here at UC Berkeley. So, tell us who you are, but tell us the stories and experiences or make the connection with, how those experiences have led you to wanting to earn this degree now. All right. And so, oh, I'll pass it back to Stephanie to talk a little bit more about this piece.
Thank you. So moving to the public health online program, as I mentioned earlier in the instruction, when you choose public health online MPH, this will pop up, and this is really important because this is where you can choose your concentration, and this is specific to our program as it's a shared application system amongst all the graduate programs here. So on this page, you will choose your concentration under primary research interest or study emphasis. Um, we have 4 concentrations that you can choose from. So definitely explore our homepage to see which one appeals to you most. And that's interdisciplinary, epidemiology and biostatistics, food nutrition and population health, and health policy and management. On this page, you'll also include your resume or CV. We recommend to include your most updated resume or CV. So that way, when we gather all of your materials and assess, what you've put together, we'll be able to kind of see where your journey starts and where you're at this point. And it all kind of helps us make a holistic uh, decision. The community and volunteer service is really great for someone who has done anything relevant to public service. So if you've volunteered or have any type of internships or things that you feel are relevant for us to see, you can put it under the section here. Just know that it is open-ended. So if you want it to be more summarized, or if you choose to go with the resume format, that's really up to you on how you see best fit. However, if I were to recommend anything, I would say a resume style with the bullet format is always helpful for us. It just kind of keeps everything on track, but truly it's up to your discretion. Moving forward, it's a continuation for this page. There's going to be a relevant information section, and this is a key place to utilize as a tool for yourself. So if you have any quantitative skills or anything that you feel is helpful to document to help us get a better sense of your analytical writing skills, your quantitative skills, things that may not necessarily have a full highlight on any of the other documents, or maybe you want to really drive it home and really make that stand out, this is a really great space for you to incorporate that information. So you can use the skills info to incorporate any type of context that you feel is relevant to showcasing some of those details that are listed here. And this is helpful because we have made the GRE optional, and maybe there's other ways that you want to showcase that you have some quant skills, and you can again utilize this space here in addition to uploading any materials that you feel will be relevant for us to see. So let's say that you've you've conducted a publication. You can put your publication under this relevant information, and it can be more than one document. You can provide your abstracts and things of that nature under here. Multiple documents can be uploaded here, but do keep in mind that it's a very slow system. So you have to give it some time before you upload your materials. Otherwise, it's just going to override. So give it some time before you upload your second document, your third document, etc. And if you ever run into any issues, I'm going to stress this throughout the whole workshop. Reach out to us. We are here to support, and we're excited to support you. Moving down here, you're going to see some personal information, and it might ask you some questions around are you the first member of your immediate family to complete an undergraduate degree? So again, it's helping us kind of learn our cohort and our applicants on a deeper level, so we can see if you have certain qualifications that maybe even can be helpful for scholarships or things of that sort. So the more information you provide us, the more it helps us with understanding our students, but also in other ways that we can support you. And moving to scholarships, I'm actually going to send this back to Elise to talk a little bit more about.
Perfect. So we do have some scholarship opportunities that are internal to the program. If you are applying for one of our spring cohorts, so in this case, if you're interested in applying for the spring of 2026, next January, to start the program in January of 2026, so a little ways out. At that time, we offer what's called the Rural Health Innovation Scholarship, and that is a fully funded scholarship opportunity for folks who both live and work in HRSA designated rural communities. So that's just for folks living and working in rural communities on public health issues. And then every term, we offer something called the Dean's Health Equity and Leadership Award. So both of these, if you're applying in either the spring or the fall, you'll see an opportunity to indicate whether or not you want to be considered for that scholarship when you apply. So you can see here in this screenshot, if you're wanting to apply for the Dean's Health Equity and Leadership Award, you would click yes, and then it'll populate 2 new questions that are related to that scholarship application. So this is basically where you can see any scholarships that we're offering in a given term, indicate that you want to apply for it, and then it'll populate the relevant questions. Some scholarships, I will say, do have like an external kind of more in-depth supplemental application, but you would also see those options here as well if they're available at that time. All right. And as I mentioned earlier, there is also an application fee. This is $135 for US and permanent residents, and then $155 for international applicants. There is an option to request a fee waiver. And so this is handled actually through the Central Campus Graduate Division. It's not handled by Stephanie or myself, but there is an option to reach out to Graduate Division and request a fee waiver. And thank you, Stephanie, for providing the fee waiver information in the chat. Great. Oh, yes. And so if you are applying for a fee waiver, there's 2 ways that you could potentially qualify, and that's either through demonstrated financial need, or if you're currently participating in a certain program, that would qualify you for a fee waiver as well. So definitely check out that link if you think it might be applicable to you. And then I think Stephanie's going to wrap us up.
Yes, so we actually have another workshop coming up. We'll be hosting so many throughout the term, and I hope that you'll be able to join any that feel relevant for you. The next one that we have will be a joint information session with our residential program. So if you are in between programs, this is a really great one to kind of see the comparison between the two. And this will be held Thursday, October 24th at 12 p.m. If you are strongly considering our program, we will have continued workshops as we break down the program format, just the general overview, and more workshops to assist you throughout your time applying. And if you would like to schedule a phone appointment or a Zoom appointment with me, I host 30-minute appointments. You can book through this link here. I'll be sending out the slides to you. And if you prefer to reach out to us, we can be contacted at online MPH or .mph@berkeley.edu. There's also many ways to keep in contact with us through our socials, primarily LinkedIn, Instagram, where we're most active in. We'd love to, keep in touch with you there, and want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And we'll open up the Q&A. So if you have any questions, this is a really great time to unmute yourself or just drop your questions in the chat. I hope this was helpful.